Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan. Every Friday the 13th, I watch all the films and the special features and the documentaries and stuff. I make a whole weekend out of it. Once upon a time, I used to watch the movies a lot because I love, the movies, and I sort of watched them too much and I kind of killed them. So I figured the best way to sort of get some distance from them and not overwatch them, along with some other horror films and that, was to only watch them on certain occasions and certain dates. So I only watched Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th. But then, that became too difficult, so I decided to I'd spread it over the whole weekend, because I'd sort of start watching them after midnight on Thursday, technically Friday the 13th, watch the first few films, and then watch the rest on Friday the 13th. But I would never have the time for the special features, so I decided to just extend it through the weekend. So on Saturday and Sundays when I watch all the special features and documentaries and that. But then I sort of discovered the fan films, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, fine. Then I'll do the documentaries and specials during the day, and then I'll try and find time for whatever new fan films are on the Saturday night and the Sunday night, and sort of make a 4-night sort of weekend out of it. And it's been very difficult finding the fan films, and then finding the good ones, sorting the good ones from the bad ones, has been a bit of a task. So I thought I'd try and be helpful and do some reviews and list some of some of the fan films, and sort of rate them and let people know which are the bad ones and the ones not to bother watching. But there were too many of them and it was taking too long, so I'm just going to focus on which films are actually worth watching. I did a review of a couple of the bad ones that I watched this weekend, and then I sort of decided, no, you're not going to do that because there's too many of them. You're only going to review the good ones, right? So I'm back to that. So I'm just going to go through the ones I found this year that were actually decent. One was called He Lives, which is a short one, but it's reasonably well shot, reasonably well acted. The characters, for as little screen time as they have, are kind of believable or sort of likable, but there's a couple of weird moments, like all these films have these weird moments, like when Jason's looking for the victims, and he's sort of like doing this, and I'm like, who's the actor? Jason doesn't do that. It was kind of funny, but aside from a couple moments like that, it was overall good. And I won't go into any of the details so I don't ruin it for anyone, but the only real issue was whoever supplied the mask and Jason makeup obviously didn't want it to get dirty, and you can tell in a few scenes that that was the case. Now, my special boy, it starts off incredibly bad and I had no good expectations for it, but once the initial introduction scene passes, the rest of it's actually decent. And that introductory scene is basically Pamela Voorhees walking home, holding a knife for some reason, and telling Elias, who doesn't look at it or anything at all like Elias, that Jason had drowned. And then he's like, that's the best news I've heard. And she stabs him to death. I'm like, why does she have a knife? Why would he say that? Even if he hated his child, you wouldn't say that. This is a ridiculous scene, didn't make any sense, not at all believable. But then the rest of the film is kind of decent, where it's one of the relatives of one of the people who owned the camp last is reopening it, and he's lied to his girlfriend about the history and all that. And some of the dialogue between some of the characters are not particularly believable. A couple of them are not particularly believable. One particular one in their relationship's not believable, but the rest of them are actually decent. And I don't know, I just enjoy it. Sometimes there are things that don't work, but other things work, and overall you just sort of enjoy it, even though it's got issues that maybe some of the other ones you sort of marked them off the list for. But I liked my special boy. Victims No More was interesting. They had some of the characters, some of the last girls come back, portrayed by different actresses, unfortunately, but they also had voiceovers by Amy Steele and Kimberly Beck, which was interesting. And basically the story is a son is trying to help his mother deal with her trauma of being one of the final girls, and he goes to the lake and gets into trouble, and I won't say any more than that because I don't want to ruin it for anyone. And the last one, I'm sort of breaking my rule. I wasn't going to, but I just have to warn people not to watch Voorhees, Night of the Beast. It's so bad. It basically is Jason versus Bigfoot. And I mean, the Jason makeup looks decent, even though it's kind of rubbery and looks like a costume, but it's kind of good. And the Jason is kind of good, but the Bigfoot is ridiculous. they could have done a good costume because, I mean, how do you screw up Bigfoot? You can just hide all the details in the big, hairy costume. But they had this big chest that was obviously rubber, and just when the Bigfoot was fighting, he was fighting like a person, and it just looked comical and ridiculous. And some parts were staged well, other parts, it was just like the camera was just on and actors were just walking through it, and that was just really inconsistent and just cringe and bad and just too much fan service in a fan film. But yeah, so He Lives, My Special Boy, Victims No More, all worth seeing. I'm going to put them on the list of ones I probably watch each year, but Night of the Beast will not be on it. So that's my little review of the good films and one bad one to avoid. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Yeah, hopefully there'll be some more films, because there isn't another Friday the 13th until, I think, September, October next year. But I've decided I'm going to start doing Friday the 13th on June 13, which is actually Jason's birthday. So even if it's not a Friday the 13th, it's still his birthday, and it gives me at least one predictable, guaranteed Friday the 13th a year that I can plan around, because sometimes it's just so long between Fridays, and it's like there's only like one a year or something, and at least this way you're guaranteed to get one at least. But if there's more than one, you get another one. But at least, because I don't think I've ever seen a year where there's no Friday the 13th, but it could happen, I guess. And at least this way, there's at least going to be one Friday the 13th I can celebrate, or one 13th of a month that I can celebrate. So yeah, so my next Friday marathon will be June 13, because there isn't another Friday until September, October, so it's nearly a year. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Sorry I couldn't keep the video to 5 minutes. I try not to talk too much, but there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to go. Bye.